Welcome to episode 3 of Confessions of a Fleshy Star. I will be your tour guide, Logan, on this adventure of me storytelling, and this episode is going to be on aliens, or what I'd like to call them, higher dimensional beings. Okay, so I've always believed in life outside of life on Earth, in other dimensions, other places. I have had childhood, teenage, 20s, and 30-year-old experiences personally in my life. So at a young age, I distinctly remember, around like 5, maybe a little 5 to 9, I'd go to bed at night and I'd just be afraid. I'd curl up in my bed and my covers, try to cover my feet, curl up in a ball, because I was just afraid of somebody being in my room with me. And I have 2 distinct instances where, when I was younger and when I was 14, where someone was in the room with me, a tall figure, and I could hear them making sounds or whatever. But the most distinct memory I have was when I was 14. So I had those 2 experiences in the same bedroom in this house in Hendersonville, North Carolina. But when I was 14, my bed had moved. So my bed was against one side of the wall in my bedroom, but then it moved across the room to the other side of the wall. And it was really interesting because that night I laid down in my bed and I looked out the window through the blinds, and instinctively I just felt and knew and said inside of myself, they're coming tonight. And I just sort of shrunk up in my bed and kind of got that anxiety going. And so that night there was somebody in my room at the foot of my bed, and I was paralyzed. I felt it was kind of sleep paralysis, sort of, where I was cognitive, but I couldn't move. And so now, because I have a reference of this, when I was 18 I got a CAT scan, but I'm 14 in this instance, and it felt like I was getting a CAT scan. So I felt like I was being scanned with a laser wand from my feet all the way to my head and down. And it felt like this tingly, rippling, intensity. It felt like pins and needles, your foot was going to sleep, but more intense, going from my feet all the way up to my head and back. And I wanted to scream out. I couldn't. It was just really intense. And years later, I found out it was the star beings that I have ancestral lineage to, and they are coming to check on me. So I was being checked on. But when you're a young child or you're adolescent, you just don't know these things. You're afraid, and so you have this stigma to this experience. But when you learn more about them and that they're benevolent and stuff, you're like, oh, okay, I shouldn't be afraid. But yeah, I was afraid because I didn't understand what was going on, and so that was age 14, and then I was really cracking open in consciousness by age 14. By age 17, I was really doing my deep dive in conspiracy theories and UFOs and Bigfoot and hollow earth theory and stuff that was taboo, knowledge, but still Atlantis and things like that, I was reading about those sorts of things. But aliens was this big thing for me. And so I was with my ex-husband at the time, so probably from age 17 to 2021, I was obsessed with watching YouTube videos and reading books and just trying to figure out all this information on aliens, higher dimensional beings. And my brother and I connected at this time period because I told him about like my childhood experience, and he shared his childhood experience when we lived in Asheville when I was born. So I was born in Asheville, North Carolina, and we lived in this house, and my parents called it the dumpy house because it was like not a very good house. That's why we moved to Hendersonville when I was like 1. But my brother was like about 3, living in this house in Asheville, and he remembers looking out his window and seeing a UFO touch down in our yard. And so like him and I have bonded about like our UFO experiences. And then like in my later teens to 20s, like we would have these experiences together like outside my parents' house. And then I'll expand more a little bit about my brother. Like he's a history major, and he's really fascinated with like UFO theory and stuff like that, UFO history. And like he knows that we're related to the Anunnaki, and he has traced it through like ancestry, like through our genealogy to like pinpoint how we're related to the Anunnaki. It's because we're like one of the rogue tribes of the 12 tribes of Israel, which they're like coming from the Anunnaki. And then in my personal experience, like I know that we're related to the Anunnaki and the Pleiadians, but predominantly the Anunnaki. But anyways, so let's fast forward to like my late teens and my 20s. So I was in community college, still like obsessed with like aliens and like researching and seeing things and stuff. And like, so my brother, my ex-husband, and I, we'd go outside in the evenings to stargaze while we partook in some marijuana. And we would always see stuff. And like I would always see crafts because I was starting to crack open, and they knew that because they're telepathic, higher intelligent beings, you know. And I would have like these telepathic like experiences with these crafts, and every time I'd get afraid, they would go away. And I would always know it was a UFO, and it wasn't just because I was under the influence or whatever, but I would always know it's a UFO because like I would see it. It was really silent, but it would just fly like in sporadic movements across the sky. Never in like a straight line like an airplane. Like I was really on like my awareness of what these things were. And also I had 2 other witnesses with me that were like, yeah, I see that thing, you know, like you're not making it up, you're not just stoned or whatever, you know. And so it was nice. It was nice that, you know, we had other witnesses, but my ex-husband was kind of skeptical and he was kind of a jerk, so whatever. Anyways, so let's fast forward to, in community college still, my first art show at Blue Ridge Community College. And so my dad and I went. It was just me and my dad who went to my art show. I had a piece in the art show. It was like a 1x4 of Buddha prints. There were 4 Buddha prints matted on the wall. It was really nice because I was getting into different kinds of spirituality and stuff at the time too, because cracking open, you know, having an open mind. And so my dad and I were like some of the last people leaving the art show. There was only one other car in the parking lot. My dad and I are walking out, and we see these people in the parking lot, and they're looking up in the sky, okay? So my dad and I turn around, and we look in the sky, and we see 5 flying saucers, UFOs, flying in a line equidistant from each other, really slowly through the sky, like this. So there's 5 of them. Well, then the first one gets to a point in the sky, and it flies up and out of the atmosphere. And one by one, all the other UFOs go to that spot, fly up and out of the atmosphere. And so we just sort of watch them do that. And then my dad turns, and he looks me in the eyes, and he's like, Logan, I believe you now. And it was just really like satisfying to have like external validation for what I already knew, you know, that like my dad, who's like a retired pharmacist, who's a very logical person, like had this experience with me. It was very cool. So that was awesome. And then I think a year later, when I got married to my ex-husband, my grandpa came down from Massachusetts, and my grandpa is ex-military. He was in the Navy, and he went all around the world, so he was a Navy guy. And I remember after my wedding, my grandpa and I were sitting downstairs on the couch, and we were drinking some moonshine. And I remember I asked my grandpa if he believed in UFOs, and he was like, I do believe that they exist. And that was really cool to have that conversation with my grandpa. And it's interesting too, because his mom was a lady Freemason. She was like a deacon in this branch called the Order of the Mystics. So they were all kind of like into the occult stuff. So it's like, oh, okay, well, there's another connection to why I am the way I am. Cool. So yeah, so my dad, my grandpa, my brother, we're all really like, you know, aware and believe. So that's super cool. Let's see. Then I think fast forward to when I was 24. So I got married when I was 21. I had that conversation with my grandpa when I was 21. Well, wait. Yes. My grandpa dies 2 years later. Okay, so before I move away. So, my grandpa, after I got married the first time, he got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. It was really hard. He lived in Massachusetts, so medical marijuana was legal at the time. And I saved up all my money, and I bought him his medical marijuana card, and I got him some medicine, and it helped. It really did. It helped him a lot. He was a believer. My grandma was a believer. My mom was a believer that the marijuana really helped shrink the tumor. The radiation is just really what did him in, because the cancer broke apart and spread to his bones and his brain, and that's how he died. So I was at Western Carolina at the time, getting my bachelor's degree. And I was in ceramics, and ironically enough, NSECA was happening in Providence, Rhode Island that year. And it was happening at the time when I needed to get to Massachusetts to see my grandpa because he was dying. So I got excused on a school-funded trip, and my ceramic mates drove me up to to Rhode Island. And then my cousin drove down. It's only 30 minutes from Taunton, Massachusetts to Providence, Rhode Island. So my cousin drove down to Providence. He picked me up. He took me back to my grandparents' house. And I was there the night that my grandpa died. So this is a wild story. So the night my grandpa was that day, hospice came on a Thursday evening. And my grandpa died at 2 a.m. on Friday morning. So that afternoon, hospice came, and the nurse was in there talking to my grandpa for about an hour. And she came out, and it was super kind of eerie. She was like, he could fall tonight. Like setting the stage, you know. And so that night, my grandma and I were watching baseball in the living room. And she's like, I'm going to go to bed. I'm like, oh, I'm going to sleep on the couch. So then she goes to bed. And then something inside of like my gut brain, like my intuition, was like, go downstairs. And I listened to my intuition. So I went down the stairs. I laid down on my air mattress in the downstairs. And when I laid down, I sort of just prayed to God, the universe, aliens, anybody who's out there listening to me, to help my grandpa pass. I don't want him to suffer anymore. And I felt this golden string come out of my third eye. And it was like connected to like the universe, to like the stars, okay? So I'm like, see this gold string come out into the universe, into the stars. And then I see other gold strings doing the same thing. Like all my relatives were like praying all at the same time, and I could like see it. And then to my right, in my mind's eye, in the stars, I see a UFO ship. And it's over my grandpa's bedroom. And it's taking his soul. And then at that very moment, I am awoken in real life by my Aunt Kathy. She's standing in the doorway of the room that I was in, and she's like, Dad's dead. Her dad, my grandpa, is dead. And it was so weird because like I felt like I was being pulled by my belly button, like this cord. I just like pulled out of the bed. And then I like got pulled up the stairs. And as I was getting like pulled up the stairs, I could smell like the smell of him so strongly. And then I get to the top of the stairs and I round the corner and I go left. And then I see my grandpa dead in the bed with his arms like reaching out. Like he was taken, like his soul was taken. And there was like a lot of electricity in the air, like it just happened. But apparently he had fallen, like my grandpa took himself out, fell into the toilet, smashed his head. And my Uncle Lyman like picked him up and carried him into the bed. But like I really believe his soul was taken by UFOs. And like ironically enough, I had never shared that story like with any like on non-immediate family. Like I told my brother, you know, maybe my parents, but I never told like any of my other family. And my grandma died 2 years later. 2 years in 2 months to the day that my grandpa died. And my cousin Ryan had a crazy dream about her after she had passed, that they were like in a car together and the car went off of a bridge and into the water. And Ryan got out of the car, but Grandma didn't, but her soul got taken by a UFO. And so we sort of swapped stories, and it was just like very interesting, you know? So I think Grandpa died in 2015. And I graduated with my bachelor's degree at the end of 2015. And then, Grandma died in 2017. I was in grad school. So then I moved across the country. I got into grad school at the University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho. And my ex-husband, I moved across the country to Idaho. And I've had UFOs watching me at my parents' house. And I was very curious if they were going to like be there when I moved. So it was a cross-country journey. It took a couple days. It was the first time I've ever like gone across the country, like left home, and it was pretty intense for me, you know, really emotional. And we finally make it to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And that night we were hanging out with my ex-husband's best friend Robbie in Coeur d'Alene. It was like 3 a.m. And I always wanted to run through a field. Like, there was, like, on my bucket list. Like, you know, you see it in movies. I just always wanted to run through, like, a field of whatever. So we're, like, kind of walking in downtown Coeur d'Alene, and we come across this field. But before we got to the field, like, my ex-husband and his friend were kind of walking together and talking and reminiscing in front of me. And I was kind of, like, lagging behind. And I see my UFO just sort of, like, doing its thing, like being like, hey, I'm here, I made it with you. I'm like, okay. So I run through like my field or whatever, and it was cool. And then the next day, we made it to Moscow, Idaho, and we got like our family housing, like townhouse apartment on campus. We get all settled in. And, like, we're sleeping on air mattresses on the floor. It's, like, me, my dad, and my ex-husband. And then I'm, like, straight shot, like, aligned with, like, the open window because it's hot. It's hot as Hades. It's, like, 90 degrees, like, 10 o'clock at night. And out the window, I just see my UFO, like, hovering, just hanging out, waiting for me. Super cool. Just to be like, oh, they're here. They're watching. They're looking out for me. And I really needed it. because the 3 years I was in grad school was pretty intense times. I got divorced. I almost got murdered by my ex-husband. Like, I really needed some guidance and some protection, you know? So it was really nice. I didn't know it at the time, but it was really nice that they were there. Okay, so that was those stories. Okay, so now I didn't really see them a lot. I saw them once on Idaho campus, like after I got divorced. I saw them once, and that was cool. But like I was just so busy and preoccupied with like my Kundalini awakening, with like spiritual stuff going on, that like I was just like not on like my awareness was not on like my UFO lineage, because more would come with time, you know. So then I would say 29, and it was like right after I met Brett, my husband. We had went to Menla, which is a Tibetan Buddhist retreat center in upstate New York, in the Catskills. Pardon me. And so Menla is in a bowl where a meteor hit. So it's like in this bowl is this cute little Tibetan Buddhist retreat center. So kind of high energetic activity, like there's Naga energy there. Like my husband and I like met the Naga, which is Tibetan like snake, dragonish energy, like god or goddess. We met the Naga there. That was super cool. Be like meditating and like see the Naga in your mind's eye and feel their energy and their presence. It's really cool. But so we were at Menla because I was getting my Reiki Master attunement, and my husband was getting his Reiki Master Teacher attunement. So we were at this really cool place, and we met a lot of amazing, wonderful people that are forever friends for life, like our soul family. But while we were there, we got abducted by aliens. And I kind of knew it happened just because of like when we were coming back, when they were bringing us back, like it felt like I was awake and I was like kind of groggy and all over the place, but I was like falling back into the bed, and I woke up with like dirt under my fingernails, and we felt really out of sorts, and our digestion was really out of whack after that. And this place had like vegetarian cuisine that was like out of this world delicious. So it wasn't anything to do with like the high energy of like the experience of the place. It was like we got abducted. Pardon me, my allergies are bad. So like we went home afterwards, and we were so out of sorts. Like we had to do a past life regression, like a small like hypnosis state, to try to figure out what happened to us. So Brett put me under in hypnosis in theta state, and he asked me my questions, and my questions were like, what happened to us, you know, were we abducted, who were we abducted by, like what was the purpose of this. So we were abducted by aliens. We were abducted by the gray aliens under the guise of the US government, because they wanted us to work for them. And it's because like my husband and I have ascended in our vibration and consciousness so quickly, they're very curious about us, and they would want us to work for them. And the Greys apologized. They said they were very sorry. They were only doing it because the government had asked them to do it. And I just feel bad for them, because the government doesn't have everybody's best wishes involved. And so we also found out that we had implants put into us that we had our higher selves clear, get rid of, like demolish it. So it just sort of came out. But the implants were hindering our digestion. Brett's was really bad. Mine wasn't that great either, but it helped. As soon as that happened, like, it was all better. But yeah, so the government said if we let them be and we didn't pursue anything, they'd leave us alone if we leave them alone. So I don't want to work for them. I want to be my own free agent. I want to do things that are for love and light and not for manipulation or whatever they do. It's not my business. But what is my business is being a good person. So that was interesting and shocking. What's really funny is that we're going to go to the Monroe Institute in June, and we're going to do a study funded by the government. So they're going to get our information anyways. So good for them, you know. So I guess this is a win-win, you know. But yeah, so that was our abduction story that happened April of 2022. And then we got married right after that. So it was like a couple weeks after that experience, we got married, my husband and I. And then we loaded up in the RV and sort of went across country and explored the United States. We went to really high vibrational places like, Hot Springs, Arkansas, where I dug clear quartz out of the ground. We went to New Mexico, and that was really pretty. We saw Taos. Went to Devil's Tower, Wyoming, which was super high vibed and super wild energy there. Definitely felt like UFO, alien energy there, higher dimensional beings. We went to White Silver Springs, Montana. We went to Idaho, and then we went to a.k.a. Ranch, which is at Mount Adams, Washington, which is across the Columbia River Gorge from Hood River, Mount Hood. And so a.k.a. Ranch was really cool. So a.k.a. Ranch, I think it's James Gilliland, is the guy who is like the owner, spokesperson of a.k.a. Ranch. And a.k.a. Ranch is extraterrestrial beings, higher intelligence. So Mount Adams, most all big mountains. Higher dimensional beings live in the mountains. So like Mount Shasta, Mount Rainier, Mount Washington, Mount Adams, Mount Hood, all these mountains all over the place, like the Himalayan mountains. They, higher dimensional beings, UFOs, aliens, not UFOs, aliens, higher dimensional beings live in the mountains. And you can see them by the lights, the aircrafts, like the UFOs that fly around. So we went there for like a week. We stayed. And on our first night, we rode our bikes. We have like lights on our bikes so you can see like rainbow lights. We rode our bikes. We were staying at this RV park in Trout Lake, which was like 10 minutes from a.k.a. Ranch. But we rode our bikes to like the edge where we could see Mount Adams. And we saw lights. We saw lights in the mountains. We saw lights in the sky. We saw crafts in the sky. That was really cool. And so we saw them for a few nights. And I really liked the vibe out there. It was really peaceful, really quiet. And then I think a few days before we went to e.a., we drove up to Mount Adams, to like the base of the mountain, where you could go hike. You can only hike Mount Adams once during the year for 1 month, from September to October, because all other times it's like 10 feet deep in snow. And even still, when we were there in September, like, actually I think it's August to September. But anyway, so we were there, and when we were there was snow all over the mountain. Like, the whole mountain was full of snow. So if you wanted to hike up the mountain, it was probably like a 2-day trip, like pretty intensive. You had to have snow gear, like a snow tent, like everything for snow, and it was cold. So like, it's kind of on our bucket list to do that. But we were just getting over COVID, the second time we had COVID, when we were there, so we're kind of short of breath, and we could only hike so far. And we sat down and meditated in the woods, and we could connect with like higher energy beings. And what was really cool is that like little chipmunks and birdies would come up and see us while we were meditating. So that's how you know you're in a good place and you're connecting with good energy, because all the wildlife is coming out to greet us, and that was super cool, really exciting. But we got in touch with, like, you know, the mountain and the energy and the beings, and that was really cool. And I'd really like to hike up the mountain, but that'll be another day. So it's hard to get up there. It's snow-capped. It's like an intense hike. We were the only people there, like, at the mountain that day. Like, it took probably like an hour to drive through like crazy back country, like off-road, dirt road. There were wild cows with bells. They were so cute. But there were wild cows with bells, like, on our way up the mountain. We were the only ones there. Like, there's like nobody out there, okay? So then the next day we went to a.k.a. to like watch the lights. a.k.a. is like, you go at night. You could stay there, but we just went to like watch the lights, you know, and have the experience of like being on the property and stuff. And I think we went Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The first 2 nights we saw stuff. There were a lot of people on Friday. Saturday it was more chill, but we saw UFOs. We saw them like in the sky. It was cool. They had like magnifying glasses and infrared stuff, and it was cool. It was really cool. But then like the last night, we got there and it was still kind of dusk, and my husband had to go to the bathroom, so it was like in the shitter for a while. But I was sitting in the field all by myself, and it was really cool. It's kind of what was it? It's kind of misty, foggy. But I had a clear shot of the mountain, just me and the mountain. And then all of a sudden, my third eye kind of like burned. And like 6 to 7 lights just like lit up on the mountain like a Christmas tree. Like, they were all just like out at this, like, kind of like in sync, you know? And it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like, just lit up. And so I got to see all of them, like, in the mountain. Like, here we are. And it was really cool. Pretty magical. And that was just for me. Like, no one else experienced that. It was just, I guess, because I'm not afraid and I've seen them for a long time and I'm a believer. So it was cool. I said that a lot, but it really was. So then, after that, we ended up moving the RV, looking for our forever home. And we started an adventure in Oregon, and along the way, I picked up a couple cool books. So when we were in Trout Lake doing the a.k.a. Ranch thing, I picked up like so many free spiritual books, like astrology books, like so many really cool free spiritual books. Like it was like really awesome in my bookshelf back here. And what did I get? I got this one book that is amazing, mind-blowing, such an expander. It's called The Keys of Enoch. It's almost like reading a foreign language, but it's talking about like archangels and how archangels are higher dimensional beings and how they have these codes and stuff. And so then that's when I really was solidified with like my main archangel that I work with, who is Archangel Enoch, Archangel Metatron, who was Enoch when he lived on the earth. He lived on the earth for over 800 years, and then he was taken up in a ship and became Archangel Metatron. So like Metatron's cube, like, you know, like the Metatron's cube symbol, like that's Archangel Metatron. And so I got this book, The Keys of Enoch, and it kind of just like blew my mind and expanded me a lot. And then I went down this rabbit hole and I found this guy on YouTube, which you should check out. His name's Christos Avatar. He's like super out there and he's like got the Kundalini rock. He's just like really high energy. But he is a student of this woman that I really like. Her teachings called a.k.a. Dean. I have like I have like 4 tomes of like her teachings on like extraterrestrial lineages and things like that. But I think Christos Avatar does a good job of digesting her information and making it more concrete, more understandable. Because I've opened some of those books and it's just like so much information. It like goes over my head. But I like him. He makes it digestible and he makes it more understandable. And after my initiation into like the Keys of Enoch, Christos Avatar, a.k.a. Dean's work, that's when I got initiated into the Violet Flame order. So the Violet Flame, the Violet Reshi, that's the 15th dimension. So when I had my Kundalini awakening in 2018, I experienced God consciousness, which is the 12th dimension. And then the person that I really remembered at that time, it took me years to figure this out, but I knew him from the 13th dimension. Him and I were like fallen angels. One of us corrupted the other and we had to pay karma back. And so then like things just started to make sense more and more. And so then I realized like I'm from the 15th dimension, which is the Violet Flame order. And so like that's kind of like my place in the world and like my higher dimensional self, because we're all multi-dimensional beings. But it took me a really, really long time to figure this out. But it's because like in my ascension and consciousness, that was like what I needed to experience. I needed to go through like years of digesting and obtaining new information in order to like actually be like, oh my gosh, this is my truth, you know, instead of like, you're crazy, I don't understand. Like it took me a long time to figure this out. So I'm really excited about it. And so, yeah, this is me spilling the tea on some stuff that I don't really talk about with people. Take what you want from it. This is my truth, and everyone else's truth is different. My husband has his own experience and his own lineage of extraterrestrial, higher dimensional beings. A lot of people in Eugene, where we live, where we've decided to buy a house and stay and have children, like so many people believe in this stuff. It's like I really am surrounded by soul family who's a tribe who like I resonate with on such a deep level. Like we're here to do such high work together, and it's really magical and really beautiful. I'm really privileged to live in Eugene, honestly. like super cool. So yeah, my my higher dimensional being ancestors, I'm a starseed, are the Anunnaki and the Pleiadians. And both are good. The Anunnaki get a bad rep, but they do have good intentions. And Pleiadians are very big helpers, just like the Arcturians and the, I think it's aviator? I don't know. I stand corrected, but... And also, too, with my past life regression work with QHHT, I have a lot of clients that have had past lives in other solar systems and other planets, being other beings that are like, humanoid but not human. Like, honestly, I've had 10 plus clients that have had like extraterrestrial lives, and it's just really interesting because they all have like commonalities, things in common with like teachings, ways of life, being telepathic, healing. Like, all of them are really skilled in like healing themselves through like forms of healing that we have on the planet Earth that are not like popular, but metaphysical, occult. So there is truth to a lot of these things. And then there's a show, Ancient Aliens, that has been on since the early 2000s, and there's so much truth to it, and it's gaining so much momentum now. I think it's just undeniable, So, yeah. Thank you for coming to episode 3 of Confessions of a Fleshy Star, and looking forward to talking about more metaphysical experiences and phenomenon in the next episode. So I hope everyone has a beautiful evening, and we'll see you on the flip side.